what I'm going to do is turn it over to David. For those who are just joining us, David usually opens our sessions with a very meaningful excerpt from English literature, and it many times causes us to think about what we're about to read. So, David, please.
Thank you very much. The reason that I like to do these poetical quotations is to show that just as the night sky is not just for astronomers, it's for everybody. What we are talking about today is not just for Orthodox religious Jewish people, but for everyone who has an interest in nature and the world around. My poetic quotation today is going to be from Samuel Taylor Coleridge's The Run of the Ancient Mariner, with also an addition, a takeoff on it from Leslie Peltier, who was a famous comet discoverer from the 1960s. The sun's rim dips, the stars rush out. At one stride comes the dark, with far-heard whisper o'er the sea, off shot the spectred bark. We listened and looked sideways up. Fear at my heart as at a cup my left blood seemed to sip. The stars were dim and thick the night, like last night. The steersman's face by his lamp gleamed white. From the sails the dew did drip. So clomb above the eastern bar, the horned moon with one bright star within the nether tip. And Peltier wrote this little addition to it after he saw his first eclipse of the sun in 1918. And he changed it to, instead of the horned moon with one bright star, he changed it to a horned sun with one dark moon within the nether tip. Thank you very much.
Very good. Very good. Actually, this is a very important subject. First, I'm going to read the prayer that we usually recite before we enter into our discussions. Hi, Rabbi. Good morning. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen. Amen. Some people have said that what we're about to read is a battle between not just God and Pharaoh, but the major god of the Egyptians was the sun god. And I attended a lecture by an archaeologist, no less, who continues to do work in the Middle East. And she was saying that this is sort of like a battle between the god of the sun and the god of the moon. Okay? I am just saying that some people have taken this in this fashion. However, I think as we go through the plagues, what we don't really get from just reading the Haggadah or the Torah is a commentary on the associated Egyptian gods that are being challenged. And I think that as we go through it, I found a source, and it may be an interesting, open some interesting discussions as we go through this, because there are different ways of looking at the plagues that come upon the Egyptians. I believe does somebody know where we ended last week? Because I think it was wrapped up in some of the, but I forgot to bring it to our attention.
I think we finished chapter 4.
finished chapter 4. Okay, then we're in
I
good.
believe so.
We finished chapter 5.
We finished chapter 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're on.
What we forgot to discuss a phrase last week that I thought would open some discussion. So before we break into the rest of our discussion, if we go back to Exodus chapter 5, verse 10. Only if somebody would care to read that again for us.
Yeah.
Whoever, thank you. Just verse 10.
Just verse 10. And here we go. And the taskmasters of the people went out, and their officers, and they spoke to the people, saying, Thus said Pharaoh, I will not give you the straw, nor will I allow you to board your American Airlines flight.
Okay. So what's interesting, we discussed about this things about the straw and all of those things, but I forgot to bring up one other thing. Remember, this is going to be sort of like a battle of wit, or a battle of the minds between the Jewish God and Pharaoh. That's another way of looking at this. And so here we have the taskmasters and foremen using the phrase, thus says Pharaoh. Many of you in other ways you have heard, thus saith Pharaoh, as opposed to just saith the Lord. And that is going to come up multiple times.
And thus saith Zarathustra.
So this here, you can see where this.
What did you say?
You said the magic word.
Zarathustra?
That's right. I think somewhere I see a revolving space station. I don't know. Anyway, I think that it's something to say that this is another take on the stories that we're about to read. Suzanne, you sent me some interesting material, and would you just summarize some of that? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
You're muted, Suzanne.
You're muted, but go ahead. I enjoy it when people send me these things, but they send it for reasons. You know what I mean? So, Suzanne, just summarize briefly what you sent me.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to
It was the one that dealt
yeah,
with.
I know what I
Oh,
sent.
okay.
I'm just trying to well, anyways, what I sent to Marty was a thing about the idea of free will and hardening Pharaoh's heart. And the rabbi who put this together is from aleph.org, and he does these animations. Well, I don't think he personally does them, but he has them done to illustrate his story. So his topic was, did God take away Pharaoh's free will? Because God's all about free will. And he talked about how there's other interpretations of from the word hardened, and there were two Hebrew words, and I can't pronounce either one of them. And now my mind just went blank. Can you help me out here, Marty?
Okay, well,
I would have watched it again if I had known you were
it
going to go on me.
dovetailed into our discussion about the word kabed, to stiffen, but also can mean honor. Is that? And I think we discussed that. But this was just another source. And if anyone is interested in looking at the video, it covered just about all of the topics of our discussion last week. Yes, Rabbi.
Marty, just kabed can also mean heavy.
Heavy, that's
Yes,
right.
he did say
He goes
that.
into this.
Right. Which is a whole different way of looking at it, that Pharaoh's heart was heavy because of the decisions that he had to make.
Right. So it's one of those, thank you. This is something that I think is worthwhile to see, that at least the group is not crazy when we talk about all these different interpretations, and that other people have, maybe all these other people are crazy too, but I don't know. But it was a worthwhile discussion. So anyway, I wanted to, I guess, we left off. We're beginning Exodus 6:1. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Opening of chapter.
So
6.
why don't? Yes. Yes, Gail.
Could we address something just before that?
Sure.
I'm interested
Sure.
in? Okay, in chapter 5, verse 22, it's the last verse in just before 6.
Okay.
Got it?
Got it.
Okay, and Moses went back to the Lord and said, "My Lord, why have you done bad to this people? Why did you send me here? And since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done bad to this people, and you haven't rescued your people." Moses is kind of middle management. You know, well, he is. He has to deal with the Lord and he has to deal with the people. And that's one of the hardest jobs there is. It's easy to be on top or at the bottom. At the bottom, you don't make any decisions. But middle management is really, really difficult. So I think that's kind of interesting. And this comes up again too. The people go out
Multiple times.
Multiple
times.
Yeah.
Hi, Mike. How are you doing? Anyway, I wanted to,
I don't
want to
mind. But thank you. Happy New Year to you and everybody.
Thank you, Michael.
I'm having a problem with my balance,
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's really very difficult for me. I don't know what's going on, but the balance problem, I guess.
Okay. It can be inner ear. There are many things. Hopefully it's just a virus of some sort associated with some sinus congestion and like that, and it'll pass.
Well, it's not new.
Okay. Okay. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care of yourself, Michael.
Thank you.
Be careful and take things a step at a time.
Yeah.
One step and big, and
Careful.
small steps, or
Small steps, just like
Small
Moses is going to be taking.
Hold on to Betty's hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Either that or get a staff.
Right. Rather than a snake.
You know me, Michael. I make light of everything. I used to joke with the.
yeah,
you know.
no, that's okay. Yeah, I need that.
Yeah, everyone does. Yes, Rabbi.
Marty, and I apologize. The reason that I was off and saying where we were, I forgot that I had to leave an hour earlier last week. So I'm glad
That's
that you
right.
that you carried through. I did run into one thing in perusing this, and we probably won't encounter them again for 2 years or whatever. But the foremen who are beaten by the Egyptians because they stood up and they took the punishment. According to the Midrash or the commentaries, when Jethro tells Moses to choose 70 men to be leaders of the people and help with the adjudication process of whatever, Moses says, where am I going to find 70 men? And God says to him, remember those foremen back in Egypt who stood up and took all the beating? This is their reward. Okay. I just ran into that one. Didn't recall it from before.
That's a harsh one.
Yep.
Any other comments before we start to deal with that? I think if you read verse 22, Gail, as you were doing, it is it's an interesting play on words. Why, do you bring harm? Why, because people are being brought to another level of suffering. Yes, Helene.
That's an interesting thing about suffering and learning. And some of the harshest lessons we have in life are after we have suffered. After we have suffered terribly, we say to ourselves, what did I learn from this? What did God want from me? And I believe truly that the suffering brings the deepest and the most important learning.
Is that why teachers give us so much homework?
Maybe so.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes, please, David.
This is actually at the risk of jumping way ahead, but at the beginning of chapter 6, it begins with, and the Lord said unto Moses. And what's happening to me and my feeling here is that God and Moses are getting closer together. They're talking to each other, they're relating, they're interacting, almost as two friends would do. So I like to think, and there's nothing in the scripture that says in Exodus that this happens, but I like to imagine that after Moses comes down with the first set of the commandments and Kerplunko the tablets, and God says, now you have to come up for another 40 days and 40 nights. And Moses, who being obedient, does that. He climbs again to the summit of Mount Sinai. But this is different. He rings the doorbell and God lets him in and says, come in, sit down. We're going to have a beer. We're going to watch TV. We're going to watch old movies and we're going to have fun. The people, then he says, have to suffer and wait for another 40 days and 40 nights. But Moses, you don't, because you're a good man and you and I are just going to relax for a while and have fun. There's nothing in Exodus that says that happens, and it didn't happen, but I like to imagine that it did.
Thank you. What you brought up is a very interesting sidebar, if you will, to this whole thing. Are there other people who speak directly with God that we have been reading about?
Yes.
Okay. Please, Rabbi Mary.
Well, all the prophets, we say that they have what I call it a red line with God. And certainly Moshe, all these years, he has it. Not many people have a direct line. I cannot remember now. But I know prophets do. And David, there are different ways of communicating with God directly. And we mentioned in the past that you hear or you have a chazon, you have a vision, or you dream. Those are ways of communicating, and not everyone has that. And as Gail said, it's a problematic thing because he's the middleman. And so what occurs to me, and one of the reasons that we say that Moshe didn't come to the Canaan land is because God told him, talk to the water, to the rock, and he didn't hit the rock. So it means that even when he gets directly word, what comes out after that, we have to question if it was, you know, that game of the broken phone that it passed. So it comes to me now that things like that we need to check out if he conveys the exact words or there is a sieve that goes and it doesn't do exactly what God tells you. But don't pay attention to what I said now.
No, that's
Oh,
important.
absolutely.
Okay. First, I'm going to call on Don and then go back to David.
If I'm not wrong, I think the last one in the Bible to converse directly with God was Job. And in terms of learning, as Helene says, if suffering is learning, Job learned a lot, I think. But nobody is sure how much he actually did learn. He managed to get back to where he was in the beginning. But anyway, as far as I know, he was the last one in the scripture that's spoken directly with God.
You're right, now.
Okay.
Okay, I would
yes,
like
David.
to expand a bit on what Donald just said. I totally echo what he said and what Rabbi Miri just said. Actually, if you expand this just a little bit, I would like to believe that all of us have a direct line to God. For one thing, when I was younger, whenever I would be depressed, I would take walks in which I would talk with God. And one of the two things that he led me to do, or she led me to do, was to relocate here to our little land of Canaan, which always reminds me, the southern Arizona desert really reminds me of the land of Canaan. And the other thing that I'm sure that God told me in his own way was to marry Wendy, which was by far the best decision I've ever made in my life.
That's good. So I guess the two Wendy's are busy talking over some coffee right now.
Yes.
Okay. But there are
David,
other.
I want to throw into this mix what came to my mind when we started and the notion of free will came up. So as you said, you know, if we all talk to God, and God is echad, is one, and there is no separation, Gail, right, between things, including God and human beings. So what's that free will? If we speak in the name of God always, also when we make a decision, it's not exactly us as humans, it's the totality of making that, and it's the voice of God speaking through us, to us, and among us, as it says furthermore. So, you know, those are things I think to think about regarding the relationship that we as humans have with what I would call godliness. Rather the God as a noun.
What do we learn from the patriarchs? Do they speak with God? Anybody? Yes.
Yes, Abraham, do you remember when the town of was destroyed, or Sodom and Gomorrah? he not just speaks with God, he just, what's the word, guys? He, like
He
in the
argues.
souk, like in the market, he argues and he says,
Bargains.
oh, what about 10? What about 1? So there is a very, very, as you were saying, David, is a very kind of direct talk, like sitting in the living room and having a drink. It's a very, very direct connection and conversation.
That's right. It occurs multiple times. And what about the ladies? What about the women? What about Sarah? She speaks with God. Yeah, yes, it's Suzanne.
She got caught laughing.
You did.
Yeah, but she also, she laughs as part of her conversation. That's right.
Right.
So yes, Helene, please.
I heard this and I thought I would save it because I have to leave. God is our Father. All fathers love their children. We are all God's children. Therefore, we can all talk to God, and God is the one who decides which way we go and which way we don't. But we can all talk to God, whether we hear him or not, is individual. A good father does not reject any of his children. A good father loves his children 100%.
Very good. Very good. Yes, Marsha.
It's funny how you start talking to God. I walk a Latvian in the morning when I can get out early. And somebody was walking before as I came up and stopped in the middle for a few minutes and then went on. And when she left, I said, "What did you do while you were doing that?" She said, "I talked to God." So I started doing that too, just to say, well, a lot of thanks, but just to say that I wanted to talk to somebody. So I guess there is an avenue for us to walk.
Okay. Very, very good.
And
Yes, please.
what's the date? What day of the year does God deliberate on his children?
Good point.
And according to what Helene feel, it's quite something because he deliberates and chooses who will live, who will die, how you will die, what kind of life you will have, and that's quite something if you think about it, and you think about God's children. That's some task for a father.
Yes. However, I know we speak in terms of father. Oh yes. Please, Ed, you had something you wanted to chime in with something.
And certainly, Rabbi. Thank you very much for having me, everyone. First off, I'm far from home, but this is really a nice, it's kind of a mitzvah for me, just to kind of feel like there's arms, everybody's kind of circling arms to learn, and it's really nice. I wanted to address the father point. I raise children. I work as a therapist for troubled children, and you can tell children what to do all the time, and they don't learn it. And I really feel that when we were speaking earlier about the hard choices, if it's easy, I always thought that if the solution I came up with while I was praying was easy, it wasn't God, it was me. I was taking the easy way out, and he'll always let me know what to do. And sometimes it'll seem harder than what I want to do, but that dialogue, I never really thought of it as talking, but the fact that the hard decisions, a father isn't just going to give everything, a parent isn't going to give everything to their child on a plate. They're going to help them to learn to make that decision themselves. And I see a lot of that in this passage, that it's all about, I guess it's choice, but being able to choose to do the right thing, choose to learn the lesson and take the lesson to your heart.
Very well stated. Very
Thanks
well
for having
stated.
me.
You're
Marty,
welcome.
I
And
think
thank you.
Grace had something to say.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Grace. I thought you were waving. Hi.
That's the other icon. I'm not really waving. You know, just kind of, I have this nose that won't stop sneezing and an ear infection, so I'm having fun. Anyway, what I wanted to mention is that, you know, amongst our prayers in the evening, you know, I just said to God, you know, I've heard a rabbi mention one time, ask God for what you need, right? So I just mentioned, I said, I need to get up early this morning. So, and after that, I'm gone, right? I'm out. No dreams, nothing. I have dreams sometimes that are remarkable, but this morning, an unusual alarm happened with my insulin pump. And there's this loud, long beep, and then a long beep, 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 and it's very annoying. And it means that my insulin pump has malfunctioned and shut off, and that awakened me. At 7:56 this morning, I was like, "Oh, you're answering my prayer, right?" So, you know, in this passage, God's answering, right? He's saying this, and this is what is going to take place. You know, I've heard earlier, we were reading, you know, I've heard your needs and I am here. And so I'm kind of tying this together, hopefully to make sense, because, you know, I'm on some medications that are helping me to make no sense of anything at the moment. So forgive me if I come in and out. It's because I have to take care of my nose and my sneezing. So thank you for letting me share. And nice to see all of you. And this beauty in the background is the one that held me captive over the holidays. One of them. I had 2 6-year-olds and a 3-year-old, and we just had a blast. So, and now my nose looks like Rudolph. So I'm celebrating all over again. So, thank you.
Thank you, Grace.
Thanks.
Does God have any maternal side?
Oh,
Yes.
Any maternal attributes, such as? Any examples or such as?
Well,
I
Any
think
idea?
that God is in many ways hermaphroditic, and that both attributes of a male and of a female, and the idea of the caring and the deep feeling towards his people, all of his people, is more on the female side than on the male side. But that's really a good question, Marty. It's hard to imagine. But I think it kind of goes back to the personal. I think that each of us has her or his own relationship with God. And that's everybody, not just Moses, not just Job, but everybody. All of us here today, for example, we all have our own relationship with God, and we try to use that and learn from it and benefit from it and have fun with it.
Yes, yes. Larry, I think I skipped over someone that I saw.
I think Rabbi Mary and
Okay, Rabbi Mary.
Rabbi Norman, I spoke already, so please go ahead. Rabbi Norman wanted to speak.
All right.
And,
When you talk of the feminine aspects or the feminine associated attributes of God, the one that comes up most often is compassion,
Right.
which you might know is rachamim or rachmonis in Yiddish, but it comes from the word rechem is a womb. So it's the direct connection to the feminine side, the Shekhinah in that sense. And then if I may, I don't want to take it far afield, but going back to Don's comment and question, whether Job is the last one to be speaking to God in the Bible depends on which Bible you're looking at and the order of the books that they printed
right.
in, as opposed to the historical timeline. But coming mostly in the commentaries about Job, but in other places as well, we encounter the term in Hebrew, it's Yisurin shel Ahava. It's like it's the pain and it's the suffering that comes out of love. And this would probably fall into many of the things that people are saying, either in a personal relationship or in divine intervention, whatever is, and certainly the role of the parent, the God as parent, is I love you, but sometimes it's a tough love.
Very, very good. Very good. Very important. Yes, Larry.
We speak of God as the creator, and that is the traditional female and only female attribute. But also the earliest gods before there was a Judaism were fertility gods and goddesses.
Sure. Sure. Yes, Michael.
God has preserved the Jews since the beginning. Although there have been, unfortunately, a very horrible, atrocious acts against the Jews over time, as well as other people, but because we're talking about right now, I have to say the Jews. And so many societies and have disappeared over the thousands of years, but the Jews remain, and he kept that for his purpose. And so, does he have a side that reflects that? I would say yes. And I'll just use this word, and you know, Marty, I hate this word, the word perished. I don't like that word one bit, especially when it applies to the 6 million Jews who were murdered. Not perished, they were murdered. So that's why, but this one time, I'll just say that God refuses to see the Jewish people completely perish from this earth.
I understand. Okay. Okay. Rabbi Miriam, then Don. She beat you by a nose, Don.
I want to address two things. First, I'll go through a midrash that I don't remember where it comes from. Rabbi Norman could help. A person asked, where is God? Is he in the sky? He doesn't find it. Is it in the earth? He doesn't find it. Is it in the sea? He doesn't find him. And finally, God was inside the person. So that's for one thing. The other thing that I want to say is that it really depends, and it always was our discussion forever. What is for you personally what we call God? So that's a big, big discussion, and it's going to, it's going to vary. But the one that I want to say, and excuse me, all of you that see God as a parent, this is my personal view. Other religions, without naming, if God is your father and you are the son, then I have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one problem, and the problem is of the separation. And one more sentence: when Am Israel builds not a temple but a tent of meeting, God says, build a tent of meeting, and I'm going to dwell. Now that's the problem. The translation is among you, but in Hebrew, it's the same word. Betocham is among you, but also inside you. So this discussion can stay for the entire year, but this is my personal belief, and I offer it to you, take it or leave it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Don. And then I want to sort of move on into the Parsha. The Torah. Anyway, go ahead, Don.
Well, I'm going to take advantage of having two rabbis here um, to dig, but I want to relate to a little bit further this passage in Exodus with Job, because here we have God has just set up Pharaoh to make the Hebrews suffer. He's already told Moses he's going to harden his heart and to expect the worst. And now we've seen the first act with the Hebrews having to go out and get their own rebar for the bricks. In Job, it's Satan who says to God that I don't think Job really loves you that much. I think he's not as good as he says he is. So I'm going to go out and test him. And God says, well, okay. And then Job suffers. So it seems to me there's a big distinction here between God's role in the suffering, tell me right off if I'm stretching this too far, but I just want to ask the rabbis for some help.
I can't say that you're stretching it too far. Job is perhaps even more than any other book in the Bible is the one that speaks in with different messages to different people, and it's highly personal to people who have experienced tragedy, people who have experienced loss, people who have experienced failure, people who have experienced loss of faith, and it's why it's still in the literature. Ultimately, Job's answer, or the biblical author's answer, is God gives, God takes away, bless, and yet we still bless the name of God. But it's almost like Job kind of throws up his hands and says, "Really? Is that all there is?" And you study Job and you study Ecclesiastes and you put them all together, but then you look at other parts of the literature, which is why the Bible is still being studied today, and why you have Torah study groups, because it speaks not only in different tongues, but it speaks to different human beings who have different experiences and the way that it resonates. So, Don, if all it does is bring more questions, you're not alone.
Okay, thank you.
Rabbi Miri, and I was going to.
In short, my rabbi, Reb Zalman Shechter Shalomi, said to ask, do you believe in God, is the wrong question. And as Rabbi Norman said, did you or do you experience God?
Very well stated.
If I could
go ahead.
Go ahead. With a little bit of flippancy, thank you to Rabbi Miri. And I forget the names of the three men who were the lyricists for Les Mis, but they come out of a Martin Buber type philosophy. To love another person is to see the face of God. Is the way that show ends, and just that it's all in relationship. It's all in who you are and who you are in relationship with another person, and that brings you to an understanding of God.
Okay, now this is something that I was hoping would occur, because we now are setting the mood for what is going to happen between God and Pharaoh. We always say it's Moses and Pharaoh, but Moses is the spokesperson. Okay. Next, what is
Despite his reluctance to be the spokesperson.
That's right. That's correct.
Right.
But what is God's name? What does he tell Moses his name will be? Huh? I sort of give you a hint.
Hashem.
No.
Will
Aya,
be.
Asher, Aya.
Aya.
And that
Yeah.
is, yes. And what does that translate to?
I will be.
I will be what I will be. And that's the purpose of this discussion that we have just had. These are the many aspects through which we see with our personal eyes. It can be a communal eye, okay? But it is the way the individual sees God. If I were a black man, I have the capability of seeing God as black. If I am Chinese, I have the ability to see God as Asian, and so forth. So this is something that it takes this whole concept. It is when we talk about freedom of choice, or is it predestined? This gives us a ton of choices, almost too numerous to count. And Gail,
Marty, beyond that, in the if you translate it properly, it's I'll be who I'll be. And
yes.
In mine, this is Miri, it says, well, what do you need today? Do you need Rahmanes? I'll be that. Do you need this? I'll be that. So it's depending on the need, as you said, personally. So personally, who I am, that's how I'll see it. But God, themself, herself, whatever it is to say, will become what you need at that time. And that's why we have 70 names. You know, sometimes I'm Shechina, and sometimes I'm Sar Tzvaot. I mean, the king of war.
That's right. So it's one of those things that we should keep in mind as we now enter the discussion of the 10 plagues and what is going on here.
What you brought up, Marty, is quite a discussion and very important, because it opens up the fact that if you don't see, when you were bringing up the different ways certain people will see God, it also talks about it's problematic because if you don't see God the way certain other religions and societies see them, you can be jailed or killed if you're in that particular society. So there's a problem there too.
Yes. I think that the book I recommended to everyone by Rabbi Sachs, the Great Relationship, okay, it speaks specifically about science and religion, the discussion there. But I think that if we extend that, and he does in his book, he extends it to include God into this discussion. And I think that we see that there are many different ways that we can, we have an opportunity to see God. And so when we say God is everywhere, but God is nowhere, or we say God is within us, all that's true. All that's true. And I think that that's what is part of what we're going to see building up as we go further and further into the book of Exodus and other books to come. So if yes, Larry, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Walter has a really interesting commentary on this. The formula I am X has been found in a variety of ancient Near Eastern documents, both royal proclamations and pronouncements attributed to different deities. The force of the word is something like, in quotes, by the authority invested in me as X. I make the following solemn declaration. He goes on to say, but in terms of the narrative rhythm of the Exodus story, this grand proclamation by the deity is inserted after the frustration by Moses and Aaron's initial effort suspending the action while providing depth of historical background before the unleashing of the first of the plagues.
Very good. I like that. Any other comment? Well, let's go on with some of our reading here.
That's one of the great.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's one of the great reasons that people leave their countries and migrate here to the United States is because that freedom of religion. They're allowed to. They don't have to be afraid here to practice their religion the way they see fit.
Actually, they should. Okay.
No, I agree. I don't know who was commenting on it or not. It may be another separate discussion, Michael. But go ahead.
But thank you, Marty. That's what I wanted to point out.
No, but I think it's a good point, an excellent point. So with all of that, let's finally get to chapter 6, verse 1. Yes, David.
Well, I'm just volunteering to read.
Go ahead.
Okay then. And the Lord said unto Moses, now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh, for by a strong hand shall he let them go, and by a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. And God spoke unto Moses, and said unto him, I am the Lord, and I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, as God Almighty, but by my name Adonai, I have made me not known to them. And in this particular version that I'm using, the name of God is spelled in Hebrew.
Yes.
And I have also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, or the land in southern Arizona, which is pretty close to Canaan, land of their sojournings, wherein they sojourn. And moreover, I have heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians keep in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Wherefore say the children of Israel, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will deliver you from their bondage, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. And I will take you to me for a people, and I will be to you a God, and ye shall know that I am the Lord your God, who brought you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. And I will bring you in under the land, concerning which I lifted up.
What, David?
He froze.
David, everything froze up on your site. Well, if someone if somebody would just read through verse 8, to pick up where David left off. I don't know what happened to his computer. But if somebody could,
I could read. Where do you want me to start?
where David broke up, why don't you take verse 7 and then go on?
Okay, 7. And I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God, and you shall know that I, the Lord, am your God, who freed you from the labors of the Egyptians. I will bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you for a possession. I, the Lord.
Okay.
Stop there. Okay.
Now, this is sort of an extension on what God has said before, but it's more detailed. Yes, Rabbi.
Okay, before we go any farther, it's like we have to push the pause button for a minute. Okay, this is it's not Jeopardy, but it's who knows the answer kind of thing. What's the importance of this particular paragraph in the Haggadah?
Can I rephrase that, Rabbi?
Of course.
What does it mean to you?
No, that's not my question. No, you can't.
Okay.
You can't rephrase it that way.
Okay, because I was trying to stimulate discussion.
Yours is a more complex. Mine's a simpler question.
Okay.
Here's the clue.
4 questions. That's right.
No. Well, not the 4 questions, but the 4 answers. Not the 4 kashas, but the 4 kosot.
Yeah, the answers.
Okay. The 4 cups of wine.
Okay.
Each refers to the verbs here. I will free you. I will deliver you. I will redeem you. I will take you.
Good point.
Okay. Each one of the 4 refer to that verb. Now, everybody knows that. I give you the credit. You all remember that. You just didn't want to say. Okay. All right. But there's a 5th verb here. There's a 5th phrase, that I will bring you into the land. Okay. So the rabbis debate. Do we have 4 or do we have 5 cups of wine?
Oh.
The majority say we have 4, but some of them say no, we should have 5. And when there's a debate that doesn't have an answer in the Talmud, it's called a teku. That that Elijah will come and will tell us what the real answer should be, if it should be 4 or 5. That's why it's called Elijah's cup. Because when Elijah comes and says we really are supposed to be drinking 5 cups, we're ready. And most people don't know Elijah's going to come and it's going to bring, but in rabbinic tradition, not the mystical tradition, but in the legal tradition, the halachic tradition, we don't know if we're supposed to have 4 or 5 cups. We drink the 4, but we're ready with the 5th.
Okay. I'm just
very interesting.
Now you can take it wherever you want to go, Mark.
That's okay. Thank you. That is a great discussion. I think so then when we raise the cup and we say next year in Jerusalem,
that's because Moses, that's the Haggadah author gets a kickback from everybody who signs on to Rabbi Roman's trip to Israel in November. Okay, so that's what that is. Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? That was excellent. Any other comments? Well, I know some people had to leave. We had a heads up on that. Any other discussion on what God is saying to not just to Moses, but he's saying it. Moses, remember this. You've got to. You're going to be saying this. Yes, Rabbi.
Well, what's the importance of God literally changing the name by which God is known to the people? Okay. And the classical response to that is that El Shaddai was, which is how God was known certainly to Abraham in the earlier days as well, was related to one particular place. Whereas the I will be that which I will be, and the Yud He Vav He, the Tetragrammaton, now is going to be the portable God. That God will be going wherever the people are, and to continue what was said before, wherever the people need him, or need her, or need God. So that's one. Why did God need the name change? A second thing is that you might remember that in the biblical tradition, whenever there's an establishment or a reestablishment of a covenant, it's marked by a name change. And so God now presenting God's self as a role of redeemer, deliverer, and redeemer for the people says, okay, to prove that we're reaffirming the covenant, I'm going to have a new name. There's also that literary piece in there too.
Okay.
Are you talking about the issue that it says Venasati et yadi, and it says I raised my hand to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob? It's a sentence that I'm not sure I understand unless you call Nasati et yadi, I raised my hand, as a covenant.
Well, no, I was basing it on verse 3, but which verse or which pasuk are you talking about, Mary?
I'm talking about Chet 8.
Okay.
Rabbi, when you say when every time there's something new, God comes with a new name, does that mean he disregards his previous name?
No, it just means that it's usually this is an added name, an added characteristic or attribute, or or whatever.
And this is how he gathered so many names.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does anybody see anything in this? It's repetitious. Some of these words have been said many times before, not just to Moses. If I leave out grains of sand on the shore and stars in the heavens, things like that, if I omit that line, it's almost the same prayer, but it's not as tangible. It's a promise. It's a restatement of the covenant that God made with each one of the patriarchs.
But it says it is said in a different language.
Yes.
That was I raised my hand to these three guys, but it's a different way, I suppose, of saying, and I promised or I swear that I'm going to give you the land. I'm not sure, but it doesn't change what we're talking about. I'm just into words. And
No, it's okay. Any other comments about all of this that we just read? What is Moses' answer after he's told all of this? If somebody would read verses, verse 12.
Well, wait a minute, we read 8. We did it after 8.
Okay. Okay, verse 9. Verse 9.
Okay. All right. But when Moses told this to the Israelites, they would not listen to Moses, their spirits crushed by cruel bondage. The Lord there's whatever. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Go and tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the Israelites depart from his land." But Moses appealed to the Lord, saying, "The Israelites would not listen to me. How then should Pharaoh heed me, a man of impeded speech?" So the Lord spoke.
Okay, let's stop at this point. Okay, here's another situation with someone bargaining with God. He's reiterating, now this is what, third or fourth time, that, hey, I've got a speech problem. Can't you really, do this with someone else? Who's going to listen to me? Any comments about that?
That the people were ignoring him because he had a speech impediment. They weren't listening. They didn't give him the benefit of the doubt.
Well, what happened when he said it the first? Yes, Suzanne.
I about other versions, but mine says uncircumcised lips. So I take that to mean that Moses was saying that he's not really one of them, or they don't think of him as one of them.
Okay.
I mean,
It's another possible. I don't know. Or is it Moses just saying, I don't think I feel that I'm capable of doing what you're asking? We had this discussions before, this type of discussion before.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what at this point, if you look at what happened to the Israelites after Moses speaks to Pharaoh, okay, the first time, all Pharaoh did was make it worse for the Israelites. Okay, Rabbi Mary, then Gail.
Gail first.
Oh, I was just going to say, not too long ago, they were all kneeling and bowing and saying, "We believe you." But now that they've been punished, they're having a change of heart. And that's a perfectly, normal human reaction. Things are going well, okay, we'll try it. But then, things get tough and you're going, I'm not so sure now. So, I think it's a natural reaction to the circumstances.
Good point. Yes, Rabbi Mary.
Sometimes I call because I call on the phone and I ask, I need to change my ticket to Israel, which we have been doing for a while. And the person says, well, I don't know if you can do it, blah, blah, blah. And I say, give me your supervisor. It's like saying, you're one of us. Stop talking nonsense because things have not worked. You're a human being like us. And, I don't have the patience for you. And they said, I don't have the patience, kotzer ruach. So maybe it wasn't enough for them.
Okay. There's I think that this is a very important aspect to all of this. So far, nobody is saying, yes, we will do it. So do you think, and we will do whatever we're told. We truly believe in your supremacy. as opposed to Pharaoh's. And yes, it says that they had been beaten down, if you will, through years of slavery. Has anyone stepped forth and said, yeah, I'll do it?
Not here.
No,
Well, Aaron did
not at
earlier.
that's right. There's still, because, you know, if you put yourself into the shoes of Pharaoh, if you have been beaten down so much, how would you feel if somebody said, well, it's up to you to take on this chore? How would you feel? You know,
Well, Marty,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, most people would be hesitant. Again, you know, who, me? I'm only one person. I'm only, you
That's
know,
right.
what can I do? But there's also, as Rabbi Miri was saying, there's also the impatience and say, Moses, you said you're going to do this. You said you and Aaron and God are going to do this. Why are we still suffering? You know, we've got hard work to do. Don't bother us with all this nourishkeit and all these promises. We got work to do.
So with that in, yeah, okay, Don, let me finish this first, Don, and then I'll get back to you. With that in mind, we're going to be discussing the plagues. Keep in mind, in the back of your mind, are the plagues just for Pharaoh and the Egyptians, or are they also for trying to save the minds of the Israelites, in recognizing that this is something they have to partake into also? Yes, Don.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about the objectives here, because last we looked, Pharaoh understood that Moses wanted to take the Hebrews out for a few days to sacrifice and worship God. Moses is telling the people, I'm going to take you all the way to Canaan. So what does Pharaoh know at this point? Does he, I mean, that the Hebrews are his main source of bricks. You know, it must be a big, sizable portion of his labor force. And so he's trying to figure out, you know, can I afford to lose that production for 3 days? And Moses is saying to the people, no, it's not 3 days, it's forever. So is there a resolution, or will a resolution come later?
Let's see what happens later. Okay. That was a loaded question, Don. Anyway, any other discussion before we go, before we move on? There's another thing that, in addition to what the rabbi says about names of God, whenever something is a very important and pivotal point, Torah starts to revert back to the discussion of witnesses to the event, or to what is to proceed from that point on. And so it is going to begin. If somebody would read verse 13, and if no objection, all the way through through 25.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that if you like.
Thank you.
I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to read and then I'm going to have to go after that because I lost my internet in the last one. And we're at chapter 13. We're at verse 13. Chapter 6, verse 13, right?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. And the Lord spoke unto Moses and unto Aaron, and gave them a charge unto the children of Israel, and unto Pharaoh king of Egypt, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. These are the heads of their fathers' houses, the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, Hanoch, and Balu, Hezron, and Carmi. These are the families of Reuben. And the sons of Simeon, Jemuel and Jamin, and Ohad and Jachin, and Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanitish woman. These are the families of Simeon. And these are the names of the sons of Levi, according to their generations. Gershon and Kohath and Merari. And the years of the life of Levi were 137 years. I hope we got a lot done during all that time. The sons of Gershon, Libni, and Shimei, according to their families. And the sons of Kohath, Amram and Izhar, and Hebron, and Uziel. And the years of the life of Kohath were 133 years. And the sons of Merari, Mali, and Mushi. These are the families of the Levites, according to their generations. And Amram took him Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife, and she bore him Aaron and Moses. And the years of the life of Amram were 137 years. And the sons of Ishar, Korah, and Nepheg, and Zikri. And the sons of Uziel, Mishael, and Elzaphan, and Sifri. And Aaron took him Elisheba, the daughter of Aminabab, the sister of Nashon, to wife, and she bore him Nadab and Elihu, Eliezer, and Ithamar. And the sons of Korah, Asir, and Elkanah, and Abiasaph. These are the families of the Korahites. And Eleazar, Aaron's son, took him one of the daughters of Putiel to wife, and she bore him Phinehas. These are the heads of the father's house of the Levites, according to their families. These are that Aaron and Moses, to whom the Lord said, bring out the children of Israel from the land of Egypt, according to their hosts. These are 30 that spoke to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring out the children of Israel from Egypt. These are that Moses and Aaron. And it came to pass on the day when the Lord spoke unto Moses in the land of Egypt, that the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, I am the Lord. Speak thou unto Pharaoh, king of Egypt, all that I speak unto thee. And Moses said before the Lord, behold, I am of uncircumcised lips. And how shall Pharaoh, well, I guess that answers one of Wendy's good questions. Behold, I am of uncircumcised lips. And how shall Pharaoh hearken unto me? And the Lord said unto Moses, see, I have set thee in God's stead to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet.
Okay, could we stop there?
Thank you.
David, we went on a little further, but that's okay.
Okay, but I'm going to have to say goodbye at the moment.
Okay,
And
wish you well.
Next Saturday, and Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you.
Well, David read a lot, and any comments about what he read? Why is it important to have all of these names mentioned?
So I could fill in my genealogy chart.
Okay.
For people who are looking for new names for grandchildren, right?
There you go. But why put all these names here? Yes, Gail.
Well, the only commentary I have is that really the bottom line of this whole thing is to show that Moses and Aaron were brothers. You know, they had the same mother. And that really seems to be the high point or the real reason for this. I mean, it goes into a lot of other detail, but that seems to be the bottom line,
Well,
which
that's
is important, you know.
that's one.
And that he had married a sister, Aaron had married a sister of the chieftain of the tribe of Judah.
Right.
So it's getting like Aaron's credentials lined up before he
Exactly.
goes on. Yeah.
Right. And not only Aaron, but the whole house, the whole tribe of Levi.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the sub tribes
Yeah,
of
'cause they're
Kahat
Levi.
and Merari and whatever that they're, you know, we can certainly presume which line of scholarship were the editors of this part of the text.
You think?
Yeah, you think? Right.
And there is a note there that talks about Aaron being a prophet. It becomes a prophet. I think it's, I didn't notice that before, but this is very interesting. He is not just the voice of Moshe, but he is also declared a prophet.
Okay. Any other things that about what we have read? Well, we also have the name of Yocheved, okay, otherwise known as the Levite woman. Okay. Any other comments about the lineages and like that? Yes, Larry.
Okay. Amram took himself Yocheved, his aunt, as a wife. She bore him Aaron and Moshe. Now, is this incestuous? An aunt to marry an aunt?
No.
Okay.
No. As a matter of fact, it's still in some ethnic communities affiliated with the Jewish community, it still happens.
Okay, now we also use the phrase here all the time, he took so-and-so as his wife. I don't think I would ever use that to say, I took Ina as my wife. It has a whole different meaning to me. But what about them? Do you take?
It's the whole. Let's see, without taking up the next half hour, it reflects a different understanding of marriage, you know. It doesn't mean we shouldn't add on to the verb of that he took it's not a matter of forceful, okay, but of more like choosing. Okay, he chose so and so to be his wife. Then it gets also into a conversation that picked up in the Mishnah of what are the different ways that a man can acquire a bride. And certainly one of them is purchasing. Another is just identifying with some sort of an exchange of property or something of value. Then there also can be an alliance between the fathers, you know, and a number of other things. But if your concern is Larry and Ina, or you know, whatever, or you know, Amram and Yocheved, it doesn't mean that it was a forceful.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
Larry,
Gail?
Larry, when you and Ina got married, didn't you say, do you take her to be your wife and do you take him to be your husband? So you took her.
Okay.
Okay.
That's taken from another religion.
I was just going to
Or
say.
do you take from her father's house into your shelter?
Yeah. You were the property of your father, and now you're going to be the property of this man.
That's where I was going. To
Yeah.
take is like to take a piece of property. It's not, that's the way I was hearing it.
Interesting.
When I conduct a wedding, I have to explain that to the people because they want to do that. And we have both parents meeting. It's a complicated thing for me, being who I am and how I think and what are my beliefs. So, yeah.
Any other comments about what we've read? A couple of things. What about Miriam? Do we see anything about Miriam?
Why should you? No, I'm sorry.
Well, there are other women. There are other women mentioned here. Yeah, why isn't she mentioned?
We do learn about her in Numbers.
I think it's that scribe again who had a little too much to drink.
Yeah.
What are some of the rabbinic commentaries on that, Rabbi? The two rabbis for the omission of Miriam.
I don't know. I'll do a little looking while you're talking. See if I can find something.
Because we will read it in another few weeks about Miriam's pivotal role. When everyone
Well, she already had a pivotal role several weeks ago in saving Moses' life.
Yes, several months ago.
That's right.
Yes. Grace raised a hand. Oh no, it's not Grace. It's Ricky. I couldn't see who it was. I just saw a hand.
Mine says Miriam is omitted in the list of names only, apart from the mothers of the most prominent individuals. So it's sort of hinting that Miriam is not a mother of a prominent individual. And that's what mine is alluding to here, but let me go to this one.
Yeah.
Okay. While that's being done, it comments about Aaron's sons.
Exodus. Okay.
Nadab and
Abihu.
I almost want to say Abihu, but what is the correct pronunciation? Where do you put the
It's
emphasis?
actually a Avihu.
Avihu, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
Yes,
those names are very important because they'll come up. I won't tell. Dun, 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 dun. They come later on with a really horrible story, but they are mentioned furthermore.
There's sort of a flash in the pan. No pun intended. Okay.
That's a double.
Okay, Gail. Don had his hand up for quite a while now. It's my fault.
I think Gail was first. So
okay. Go ahead, Gail.
I was just going to say, this is really important that Aaron's credentials are, he has to be in front of the Pharaoh with Moses. He has to be mentioned here because later on he becomes the high priest. So it's really, you have to explain the nepotism, I think, somehow, and have the people accept that. No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Because if he was playing a very, very minor part and they're going, you're making him high priest? So I think, this is really important.
Okay, okay, thank you. Yes, Don.
Yeah, thanks, Gil. That's an introduction to my comment, which is that in those days, it was full-time employment for genealogists. I mean, every so often you get the entire bloodline laid down on the page. And it's such conflict these days with meritocracy and democracy, where it doesn't matter, who your parents were, your parents before that. But it was bloodlines it's the holy grail in the Bible.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, good points. Go ahead, Ricky.
One of my other things here says, the wives. In only 3 cases does the Torah mention the wives of the leaders. In all 3 cases, the reason is to show that the offspring of these great people descended not only from distinguished fathers, but also from distinguished mothers. So double distinction.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good. What about Phineas?
Pinchas.
Pinchas,
Pinchas? Phineas?
Pinchas,
Mhm.
Pini,
What
Pini.
about him?
What, we don't want to give away anything in the future. What,
Well,
But
I
he
mean,
has-
there's a
he has
whole
to-
chapter
he has to
devoted
be
to
given
this.
credibility. Same kind
That's-
of thing. That
That's right.
Yeah.
He's a member of the special tribe.
That's right. Now, is there another possible reason to have all of these names mentioned? This has gone on before too, with starting with Abraham and lineage and everything. But every time there's a pivotal point, all these names seem to be mentioned. I was going to ask the question, could it also be that these are the witnesses to these events? It's a lot of people that are bearing witness to this. So if this were to come up in a discussion, well, look, you would say, well, look at all these people who have been mentioned. These are the witnesses. It's a lot of people, a lot of witnesses, and to support what we're going to be reading. So I don't know. The thought crossed my mind, and I was just curious. Any comment about that, Rabbi, that has ever come up?
I hear what you're saying, Marty. I don't necessarily connect it to anything, because when your use of the word witnesses doesn't really appear until Revelation at Sinai, where God says to the people, you've all participated in this. You've all been witnesses. You're saying that here, these are the names. Here's a list of here's the list of the witnesses in the trial, so to speak. The prosecuting attorney is presenting his list of characters. The Torah doesn't, at least in my mind, doesn't do it that way. But this seems to be someone, not God, but someone needs to be listing all these people so they know what their yichus, their influence, their potential power, why they are the leaders, or the familiar names, these are the names that people have heard, but not necessarily from the standpoint of these are the people who are the witnesses.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Ricky.
Witnesses are important in so many of the world's religions, as the people that witnessed the resurrection of Christ, the Mormons, there were witnesses that saw Moroni when John Smith got the tablets, and they're always named. And I think it's somebody sort of mentioned the esteem of the people that are the witnesses adds to the validity or the believability of the witnessing. So, I mean, it's not the witnessing of the multitude of, it's witnessing of very specific people that the community will trust later. So, and then I've mentioned 3 cases, and I'm sure there's a lot more cases where the witnesses are very important.
So far, without saying much about, going into things, this follows God restating the covenant. And I'm reminded of all the different things that deal with the covenant, and why invite people, so many people, traditionally, why invite so many people to a Brit Milah? Is it just to have a good time?
Yes.
And to witness.
A ketubah signing.
There are only 2.
That's all you need, but is it just 2?
No, you need a witness as well.
At least
Yeah, those 2.
Right.
2 witnesses. But
You're talking about the socialization of,
yes,
or the legal requirements.
The whole social. We're not here. This is not legal. This is a social type of situation. They're dealing with a society. And so why do we invite people to witness these events?
To celebrate, to be happy with the main performers, Brit Milah, wedding. It's more than witnessing. It's
support.
The celebration.
It's in a way, it's to memorialize the event also.
Another way of describing it. So that's why I brought that question up. Is this another way of saying we still do a lot of these things, and with all kinds of ceremonies, and when I talk about the marriage ceremony, I'm not talking about under the ceremony that's under the chuppah. I'm talking about the ketubah signing. Because you don't need anything else after the ketubah has been signed by both the parents have witnessed it, the brothers and sisters. They're sitting there. You have 2 people who are witnesses, but it's an intimate family and friend situation. The same thing with a Brit Milah, a bar bat mitzvah. Yes, please. First Larry, then Rabbi Mary.
Okay, I actually found a reference to Miriam, a previous question, in Exodus 6:20, according to Alter. She bore him Aaron and Moses. The sons were listed by order of birth. 3 ancient versions add, in quotes, Miriam, their sister. But the list, like the one in chapter 1, is interested only in sons. So
yes, it's a Septuagint. Yes.
Marsha.
Okay. Yes. First, I want to give Marsha a chance. Marsha, you're muted. Marsha, you're muted. There you go.
I think that it's presenting the Jewish people in a different way. It's not just the small family. It's a nation.
The community, yes.
It's a community, and that to make it important in their lives, the bigger the community, the best it is.
Good point. Okay, yes, Rabbi Mary.
Well, I could say a couple of things. The first one is that it's the less religious one, is that another person is writing this, and this appears as, you know what, all these people were there, or these people are there. But what comes to my mind is that they were there, I mean, we were there 400 years. And if 400 years we still remember who's on first and who comes for this one and who comes, that's a very weird or very special way of thinking. Because if they know that now there is Nadav and Avihu, they knew everyone that came out of the 12 brothers. So I think there is both of them are distinctions that are not connected with too much godliness, but someone writing them or thinking how much they kept their iches, their you know, who was who. Because later on it's important. If later on we know that the tribes come as tribes with flags and the order of where they stand. So I always figure out that these 400 years, as we call them, there was a structure that helped them know where did they come from.
Good point. Rabbi?
Yeah, I
Rabbi
just want
Ramon?
to remind us all that this was originally an oral document.
Yes.
Okay. And as the storyteller is going on and on and on, I can see saying, okay, now wait a minute. Let's review something here. Let's go back and talk about where all these names came from and who's related to whom and how, before we get into the next chapter, which is going to be a very important one. So let me pause here as I'm telling you the story. Let me pause here and again give you all the, as Mary said, the yichus, and give you so we can all keep it straight in our minds because it wasn't written down yet. So it's I see it's something like this. Let's pause for a commercial, or just to refresh our minds of who's who.
Another question that deals with the Sabbath services, specifically the readings before and after the reading of the Torah. When we announce the names in Hebrew, you're somebody's, you're the son of somebody or the daughter of somebody. And when those people were called up before, they also were the sons and daughters of somebodies, and further back and like that. So why is lineage so important? Why do a lot of people today like to do genealogy? Is it out of curiosity, or does it have a deeper meaning to people? Don?
I think both.
Okay.
Personally, I think I think everybody wants to be part of a dynasty, and it's,
Mhm.
it's, I think it's just to give self-importance, and these days, if we're all made in the image of God, it's unnecessary to have that proven lineage. And we're required in our time on earth to prove ourselves and our allegiance to God. I think it only causes problems to attach to a genealogical line. That's my personal opinion. I'm sure other people will differ.
Okay, Ricky, you beat out Gail just for a second.
Okay. I was thinking about my family because my two halves, my father, Eastern European Jew, my mother, Italian, and who of my offspring want to follow and climb the heritage of one side with no interest in the other. And good friends of mine that want to know my heritage on that side and no real interest on the other, although there are famous names on both, well, there's at least on one side. But one of my daughters made a big thing about wanting to know the medical heritage. And, so that in a way, and as any of us did 23andMe or whatever, if you're an Ashkenazi Jew, you're more prone to BRCA, you're more prone to this, you're more prone to. So there's, aside from anything everybody else will probably say about the curiosity or feeling a link to your past, there's also that medical side that plays a part in our heritage. And I'm sure, Black people with sickle cell anemia, so there's so many traits, physical traits that can be passed down through that it's important to know. And with my mother being of Moorish, M-O-O-R descent, I'm lactose intolerant. Okay, that's not a big deal. But if I was a Moor and Black, it might be sickle cell anemia, it would be a big deal. So that's where this, I think, is one more dimension to the heritage.
That's in the modern age, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I can respond to
Sure,
that,
please.
Ricky,
Well,
the problem that I would see with the medical part would be if somebody discovers something along the lines of their past history of relatives, it could cause tremendous anxiety in a person with that type of thinking. So there's two sides of the coin to that, and a lot of people look at that as well.
okay. Every time I've had to fill out a medical history thing, it always asks, did your mother die of, or your grandmother, or your aunt? Did your father have a heart attack? Was there breast cancer? Immediately in the family. So it is part of who I am, is the sum of all of that. Go ahead. Gail was next, really.
Okay, Gail and then Larry.
This is very interesting. I just in the last few days have gone through a whole procedure with my oldest grandson. He's 38. He's never really had a lot of interest in this sort of thing. But when he was born, I gave his mother, for him, my grandfather's pocket watch, because he was the oldest boy in that generation. I thought it would be appropriate for him to have my paternal grandfather's pocket watch. So he's had it for 38 years. I also have a wedding picture of my grandfather and grandmother the day they got married. And I was talking to him the other day and I said, I think you should have that picture because in the picture you can see the watch chain. And he said, and he just went crazy. He said, you mean that's attached to the watch that I said, yes. So I'm sending him the picture to display with the watch and some history about the family and when he was born and, when they got married and who the children were and all this sort of thing. And he's just absolutely gone berserk with this. And this is just my paternal grandparents. Now, my other wedding picture I have is of my maternal grandparents. And that one I'm giving to my daughter because she wore that grandmother's graduation dress to her graduation. So I
Wow.
thought it was appropriate that she have that picture. The sad thing about this is we have to split this stuff up. It doesn't stay together. And, but it's just been a really interesting experience. And I'm going to be going through some other family pieces and stuff before I move and passing them along too. So anyway, sorry.
Thank you. Okay, Larry.
We spoke about genetic inheritance, but there is also a genealogy and a passing down of knowledge. And I just read that Rabbi Roman will be having a class on his spiritual teachers. And that is something also, I think, especially in our Torah study, that we should think about the people who taught us, influenced us, and what knowledge we want to pass on.
And that is part of this too. Okay, and you say, you know, we may someday have a discussion, were we really all there at the same time? You know, as some people have said. So it becomes a very interesting discussion in and of itself, more for the rabbi. So
no, I mean, I think, and
yeah.
As we're all saying in one way or another, this whole genealogy, all the list of names is a connecting. You know, I think
Yes.
Grace sent a little chat about it. You know, it's
Yes.
connecting all of us, both historically, as well, you know, as well as thematically, you know, and whatever. Oh, okay. I mean, we're going to encounter Nachshon. Oh, that's where Nachshon fits into this big family, the big family tree. Nadav and Avihu. You know, that's where I knew that name from. Now I understand a little bit more. So it's filling in the pieces. Again, just kind of a personal thing. One of my daughters-in-law is adopted, and she knows who her mother was, but she doesn't know any of this family history. So, like Ricky was saying, any of the medical history that one day she's probably going to need to know or want to know, or a doctor's going to say to her, "Was your mother or your father's?" I better find out. So, and nowadays we can find that out. But you know, so again, just I like the idea that this is connecting. And as Larry was saying, this is helping us both in the standpoint of genetic, but also of educational and insight into who some of these people were and what their connection was to the people of Israel.
And still to this day.
Right.
That's what's important, because it's not just for that point in time, because you and your history, as you go back through your individual lineages, you will eventually, if you had the ability to do it, you could link your lineage back to the witnesses or the people that participated in certain events that we're reading about. Okay, and that personalizes the whole story. Don, and then Michael.
Yeah, it's always moving when you read about an adopted person who finds their biological parent and is reunited. It's very moving, but at the same time, it's tribalism that's killing the world. You know, it is one tribe against the other, and if it's not Republicans and Democrats, it's bloodlines. You know, the McCoy's feud with
Yes, this is done.
Yeah, but it's all over the world. And tribalism to me is at the root of all the violence and war. You know, the Aryans, supremacists, the white supremacists. It is all tribalism. And tribalism is genealogy. It is only genealogy. So as much as I like to hear about people that reunite with their biological parents and the heartwarming stories, I personally have to push back against that.
Before I know Michael, and I would have a slightly different take on that. I would say that is one of man's or humankind's weaknesses, that we allow something that's so important to dominate us and then try to force it on other people, because we have our view. Maybe that's part of the lesson in saying that I will be what you think I will be when you need me for that particular reason. But if you start to take that as the human being and say, oh, I've got full possession of this and I can impose that on everyone else, that's the pitfall. I don't think it comes from God or lineage, understanding lineage. It's how it's used, how people use it, as opposed to using it for good. And there are people who do use it for good as well. Okay, first Michael, and then I have
Grace, and then me.
Michael, Grace, and Ricky.
Yeah, if I may revisit the medical aspect of the genealogy. There's no guarantee, because you know that your relatives had a particular illness or a disease. There's no guarantee that you're going to have it. And if they try, if doctors try to prevent it, that could lead to a reverse reaction. And I talked to other people about this because I heard that story before, and so I didn't want to get into a discussion with Ricky when she mentioned that, but that was something I wanted.
Toward. It's not a guarantee of.
Yeah, so that's basically what I wanted to say. But thank you for bringing that up, Ricky. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Grace is next.
Grace, you're next.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, we're talking about lineage, and rather than use the word tribes, like this little girl in the background, she's part of my clan. That's the word that I use often. Her father was a foster child of mine. I fostered 4 boys from the same mother and different fathers, and they've extended that. And then the mother decided that I would be their godmother because she came back into the picture, out of the picture, back in the picture, and now she's back in the picture. And she's part of their lives. And I always established this, that, I would tell them, they were 2, 3, and 4, and 5 years old. I said, who loves you? And I always included her, because that was the interpersonal connectedness that they needed. And that's what I'm seeing in most of this. And that God is saying, I am needed. I need you. You need me. So in a way, he's establishing this relationship of how all of us are related in this clan, no matter if you're circumcised or not. That doesn't matter. What matters is that we stay connected, so that together we can, fulfill a better future. So that's just,
it's a nice way of putting it.
My take on it. So thank you for letting me share.
Yeah. For those who may or may not have been seeing what Grace has been putting up, there's some very wise statements, Grace.
I want to get
Who
back to.
was next? There was someone else that had their maybe.
No, it was me after Grace.
Okay,
Ricky.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Just getting back to tribes, the word tribe, or whatever you want to think of the word, tribe. I'm going to take it way back in eons. We needed tribes to survive. We needed groupings of people to hang together, to protect each other, etc. So tribes, I was just going to say, they're in our DNA. I mean, a single animal that looked like a human was not going to survive, but a pack of animals that were on their way to being human had a better chance. And the more you got the similar types of people together, beings, I should say, together, the better we survived. And I think that mentality, I don't know what word to use here, has continued through, and that is part of the us versus them, because it's my tribe has survived, by doing this, but we got to go way back to the value of the tribe and start at that. And then us humans screwed it up quite a bit by deciding to make my tribe better than your tribe. But that's another discussion, and it's
right. But I think Grace hits a little closer to the mark when she talks about we all have our individual reasons, whether and some of those reasons may be just ours alone. It could be the family. It can be the small communities within the larger community. Right. But if they don't work together, it's doomed to fail.
That's humans.
And I think this is what Grace is getting after. If you look at all of her comments, it would be very interesting.
Tribes are just they're very valuable and they're very educational. And I would turn for a moment to the Native American. And I'm very, very close with a particular percussionist who is a Native American, and I have a lot of discussions with him, and he's such a positive individual, talking about the earth and lots of things that are very important to the planet. He gets involved in courtesy between people, and it's very, very, very wise, very, very smart, and so I relate that. And he talked about tribe. He talked about in Judaism also the 12 tribes. He's very knowledgeable, and so this discussion of tribes is to me very interesting and very educational.
Okay. When we visited the Hopi reservation, Marcia, I think, weren't you there? You weren't. Okay. Gail, I know you were. Some of this comes out in the discussions with the Hopi people themselves. And as I've mentioned before, it's a very interesting thing. But when there's a common cause, it will bring people together. Okay. So you have to be able to take that one step beyond. And then everybody grows to the next level from that standpoint. I just want to say that some tribal customs, though, we made what's very interesting. If there are tribes in Africa, in Australia, that when a deceased parent or grandparent dies, they consume the brain of that person because that's the seat of knowledge. And so they then have within them the knowledge of their ancestors. because of previous generations that have done the same thing. That's their belief. Okay. But if you go back far enough, you take all the tribes and you go back further to the original patriarchs and you go further back. That's why the book keeps repeating this. You're there. You're a part of this if you look at it this way.
And also recognizing that, you know, 1,000 years later, after this takes place, 10 of those tribes are going to disappear. Right. So at least we'll have the knowledge.
Yes.
You know, if not the actual experience, but we'll have the knowledge that those tribes were part of the people.
Right. Any other comments?
I recommend the book Species that talks about the issue of tribes, stopping tribes, the creation of a God, the God creation of the human. Very, very interesting way of thinking of the writer. Yeah.
Excellent.
Interesting. Well, I think we've covered a lot today, and we never even got to the plagues yet. but we've set the framework. Yeah, we're now in a frame of mind that we'll be able to understand what we're about to read. Very, very good. Any announcements, Ruth Ann, or?
Nope, just service next Friday, and
Bagel
hope
breakfast
everybody
tomorrow.
can attend. Like you'll see in my little president. No, where did I write that? This ritual committee. I can't remember where I wrote what in the chauffeur anymore. But like I said, if you're coming to services only for food, we need your bodies to come to services because we're not going to have food until people attend. It's just too much work. So people come attend and then we'll feed you. Reminder, anybody who is going to bagel breakfast tomorrow morning, who was not at either the Hanukkah party or the bagel breakfast, to please bring your vaccination card. Also, if your status has been updated since either of those two events, like you've gotten a booster, please bring your card so we can mark it. I went over the list last night and I marked everybody who was vaccinated and boosted as of the beginning of December, but I could have missed somebody. So please don't get real upset if, you know, you should be bringing your card around anytime because it's almost like a passport anymore. You know, when you're in a foreign country, you never know when you're going to need it. And that's pretty much it.